how do I want my business to feel, to me?
Hey, my name is Felix Tia, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how to know which business to focus on when you've started multiple businesses, how to think bigger as an e-commerce entrepreneur, and what is a micro ambassador program and how it grew her revenue by 600%. Today, I'm joined by Cindy Collins from Euphoric Herbals. Euphoric Herbals makes herbal products for women and their families, specializing in pregnancy and postpartum, and generated $380,000 in revenue in 2017 and was started in 2010 based out of Milford, Delaware. Welcome, Cindy.
Hi, Felix. How are you?
Good. So you mentioned that you got started it was kind of a hobby of yours, and you were going to craft shows and got started on Etsy. So tell us a little more about this. How did this hobby turn into a business over time?
Sure. Well, the hobby started after my second son was born. And at that time I was making herbal products and herbal tea. And I really got into it during my first pregnancy, mostly making products that were just for myself. And then after I became a doula, I started making products for my clients that I was serving. Then it became to my family and my friends. And I always liked creating and crafting things. So, naturally I would think, well, I'm going to sell these products. I'm going to go to farmers markets and craft shows. And then eventually I started selling on Etsy in 2010, just it was a hobby, because at that time I had 3 young children. My third son was born in April 2011. So I just started selling on Etsy a little bit here and there, and locally at different craft shows and events. So that's how it originally began, and now it's much different than that.
Yeah. So you said you had 3 children at the time that you got started?
Three children, and I actually had 3 businesses as well.
So how did you squeeze in the time?
Well, yeah, none of the businesses really were demanding full-time work, even part-time work. So it was just a little bit here and there, things I enjoy doing. So I was doing photography part-time, and I was a doula attending births part-time, and then just creating herbal products on the side. So it was just kind of whenever. But it was really after the birth of my third son was born that I realized, okay, I can't do this all. I'm only one person and having 3 young children, running 3 businesses. And, and my husband, he was working full-time, part-time, and doing his master's degree. I was like, there's not the kind of life that I really want to have. So I kind of really started to focus and have a shift, and that kind of came about when one of my customers had asked me to create a product for them. They said, can you, create a lactation blend? I used to did lactation counseling at local hospitals. So I was very familiar with that. I also studied herbalism, personally, just for my own, desire to learn more about the herbs that I was using. Never intended to do it on a professional level. And I said, yeah, sure, I think I can do that. So I created a lactation blend, created a formula and packaged it, and send it to them for feedback. But then I also would send it to other testers, because I really wanted to get a wide variety of people based on their health circumstances and situations to test these products, test this new product that I had created, and give me feedback on it if I wanted something I wanted to regularly sell. And I got really good feedback on it. And I just thought, well, maybe this is something I could add to my product collection. At that time was just herbal teas and herbal salves. And so then I added that in there, and that new product development, that was the first product of my lactation collection, really set me on a whole new path and trajectory that I never expected.
Was it like sales you're talking about, that just like, hey, this is something that's worth investing time in because it was doing so well in terms of selling?
Yeah, well, it was sales. So that was a big part of it, that it started selling more than my other products. And so that demanded more attention and focus, and so as it demanded more attention and focus, I started thinking about, well, what if I just did this, or just did kind of herbal products? I was starting to get tired of trying to have 3 businesses, realizing that I only have a finite amount of energy and time. And then people would ask for more products, like, can you create another lactation blend without this specific herb or this specific ingredient in it? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'll give it a try. And it started kind of growing between that was just kind of a lot more of what I was doing. And it was much more easier for me as a mother with young children, especially a new baby, to be able to do this from the comfort of my own home, from the convenience of, if they were taking naps or at school or something like that, where it's much more harder to fit in being on call as a doula and scheduling photography shoots. So this was much more convenient for my lifestyle at the time.
Got it. So it demanded more attention and focus, but you could have been in a situation where it demanded time and your attention, but then you also you still could have done everything else that you were doing too, and then spread yourself completely thin. What made you decide, I'm going to, instead of spreading myself thin, I'm going to just double down and focus on one thing?
Yeah. Well, and it was really hard when I loved everything that I was doing. And initially when I kind of started in this industry of working with mothers and baby, my whole goal was eventually to become a home birth midwife. And that's what I thought I was really called to do. And then after I started having really good feedback and results and success in the products that I was creating and the difference it was making, in my customers' lives, and that really just filled my soul. And I just thought, okay, you know what is the one thing that only I can do, that no one else can do? If I had to choose something, because I really have to focus at this point if I want to have a bigger impact. And I thought, well, there's doulas in our community and anybody can become a doula. It's not super challenging, and I thought, well, and anybody who gets a camera can become a photographer or thinks they're a photographer. I said, there's plenty of those people in this industry. And I thought, if I were to stop creating these products that I'm creating, that I would get these feedback and testimonials from customers that would just, make me want to cry. I think there'd be a negative gap in the marketplace, and that would be the biggest impact that I could make. In a different way, support the quote unquote birth community from a totally different, perspective and different angle, and create advocacy and awareness from a different, way, but still creating products. So that was something that I said, I'm going to focus on this. And once I decided to focus, and that's when I saw a huge shift in my business, is no longer trying to put my energy in all these different places. That's when my business really started to grow.
Got it. So I like that question that you asked yourself, which is, what's the one thing only I can do? At that time, and maybe even today, was there no competition out there? Like, was there no alternative for people that wanted the same solutions for their problems?
Yeah, there are definitely other alternative, brands and companies and products in the marketplace that definitely serve the same need. There at the time, I felt like there wasn't, and sometimes maybe there's still not the same company that's making everything from into preconception into menopause for women. So there might be companies that focus on a specific niche, maybe just pregnancy and postpartum. But I really wanted to serve women and their families in a much more greater capacity, even if it's a product that I personally use, but it felt like something that my sister might need or my aunt might need, or something I might need in the future. So I just didn't want it to consider only me being my ideal consumer, so I wanted to consider it in a different way. So there was alternative options, but you couldn't go to one company and buy everything that you needed. And a lot of my lactation blends, even though they're about 85% of what I sell, they actually came last. Everything else came first. So all my herbal teas that I created and all the different topical salves I created all came before the lactation blends.
Got it. So can you walk us through the new products you introduced? Like, what was the very first thing that you introduced that was selling? And then how did you start branching out to other products, other almost categories that you start adding to your store?
Yeah. So the very first products I started creating were products that I used personally. So it was like an herbal tea for pregnancy, an herbal tea for postpartum. Then I would make a topical herbal salve, an ointment for my baby. And so I had just created herbal teas. And it was like, I wanted to find herbal teas. It's really hard to find, a specific product that could say for pregnancy or postpartum. So I would do the research, through the resources that I had and the textbooks that I had of what was herbs that were safe for me to use, that would be safe for pregnancy and postpartum. And so these were products that I personally used and then my clients used. And then when the lactation blend came, the first one, which is called Dairy Fairy, someone asked for that, and someone asked for an alternative option without a specific herb, which was fenugreek, and so then I developed a sister blend, if you will, of Dairy Diva. So after about 2 years of having Dairy Fairy and Dairy Diva, somebody asked for an alternative blend that would be much more suitable for someone that might have be sensitive to hormones or sensitive to birth control, or may have a history of polycystic ovarian syndrome, which those different health conditions impact milk supply. So then I created a blend of herbs and superfood called Milk Machine. At the same time, I just created a symbiotic blend, called Lush Leche. So those two blends, I created those maybe, that was 2013, 2014, I created those blends. So that was kind of the evolution since then. I might have created maybe one more product. I think maybe like a salve called Muscle Mend. Since then, it's just really focusing on refining those products. I haven't created any products in quite a few years because I've just been so busy trying to build and scale and create infrastructure and systems and getting to really refine the product process of creation.
Right. So was it really just like one person that would come to you and say, hey, I would love if you could offer this as well, and then you just kind of dove right in? Or were there multiple people, or was there something specific that people were saying that made you say, okay, let me do this one instead of all the other potential product ideas?
Right. Well, it was multiple different people. So after a while, if different people would ask for the same thing, obviously I started paying attention. Okay, well, someone keeps asking me, for a tea that for headaches that's safe for pregnancy and safe for nursing, So after a while, after a couple clients would ask for that, whether it's doula clients or customers that would purchase online, I listened to them. I'd say, absolutely. If they're going to tell me what they want, and I have the means and the ability and the skills to create it, why wouldn't I? And it wasn't too much different than what I was doing. So I'd create a product and a formula, and test it. So always when I created a new product, I always wanted to, of course, have people test the product to see if I needed to tweak it or change the formula a little bit.
Got it. So you mentioned that you've essentially paused on growing the catalog, and you're now trying to go deep and focus on business building to make it more scalable, build out that foundation, build out those systems. What made you shift and say, this is the more important thing for us to focus on as a business?
I think so for a long time, my business was run out of my home. I like this big bonus room above my garage where we would build and create products. And when it was starting to grow and beyond the capacity of that room, I said, you know what, there's a lot of foundational things. If I'm really going to scale this business, I need to work on, the unfun parts of creating a business, so that's systems, that's infrastructure, looking at what are the things that I can scale, what are the things that I need to outsource that I can't do anymore, as somebody who I consider myself to be a maker. So outsourcing certain parts of the product and hiring people was really challenging for me, but now it's really one of the best things, and it was so liberating to get to that point.
Right. Yeah. Being a maker is a great way for people to start, right? Makers are always starting things, but then once it gets to the point where they have to essentially give up the more creative side that really drew them in the first place, it's really hard. So what were some of the first things that you looked at and said, okay, I cannot be doing this anymore?
Yeah. Well, I've always had, ever since my third son was born, I've always had some part-time assistants. So whether that was a friend's daughter that would come over after high school and help me a little bit. So it was just kind of like, let's fill the immediate need right now. And I wasn't at that point, I was not really thinking vision and long-term like I can now. I didn't have the capacity to do that. So now it's only been a couple of years where I'm able to outsource part of the product production, where it's like my capsules. I couldn't keep up with that. We were doing that all by hand and always behind creating herbal capsules and supplements. And I didn't even know how to grow and scale that. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was very naive at the time, going, I know I'm supposed to keep doing this. I don't know how, but I know it's got to change for me to continue, and I've got to scale it. So I eventually would go to an expo, a natural product expo, and got connected with a contract manufacturer that would help me create the products on a scale level. And so that in itself changed the revolution of my business. I felt like then I was able to the people that I had working for me at the time, they were all part-time, and I have just part-time employees, able to use them and utilize them in a different way. So that way we could meet the demand faster, and then I could focus on different areas of my business. And as things have changed and grown, I really think, okay, I hire when and where it hurts, so if something's taking a lot of my time and I'm not the most efficient or effective at it, I feel like, okay, well, that's what I need to hire for. I need to hire for those types of people and position. If I'm not the most skilled at it, it's going to consume too much of my time. And then I can't think of, managing, the employees that work for me and scaling my business because I'm too busy responding to, emails or running ads or things like that, or doing just things on social media, I can outsource those things. Even though I might enjoy it, it doesn't mean I'm the best person for it. So I have to remind myself and reflect on that a lot.
Right. And it's also really easy to create a very long to-do list based on the nagging problems that are right in your face, but then it's much harder to do what you're talking about, which is almost to think bigger, to think vision and finding solutions for problems that are going to come up. Maybe it's not here right now, maybe it's not hurting your business now, but then if you don't spend the time on trying to build solutions today, you won't be ready when the problem actually comes. What were you doing on a day-to-day basis? What were you doing to take time aside to think about these things? How did you even begin to make that shift from thinking tactically day to day to more what's our plan in the next 6 months?
I think making that shift for me was a lot of internal work. So I think, listening to books, listening to podcasts, kind of really getting myself in that, the psychology of going, what is it, what my business looks like this right now, but what does it mean for my business in 3 years or in a year or 5 years or 10 years? And what does that require of me? Because right now I'm not there. And I have to get to that point. And so just thinking, okay, what are the tools and the resources that I need, And so, that requires, so books and reading and courses, but that also means reaching out to local agencies where I've gone to, like the local small business administration, and SCORE office and going, listen, I don't know what you guys can offer me. And this was just even a year ago. So not that long ago. I'd say, I don't know what you guys can offer me, but what things do you have available that I might need in the future? I don't need them right now. I feel kind of solid now. But until they tell you what you have, you know what? And then those things come up. So for example, I went to this local, small business administration a year ago, and then they networked me with the director of the World Trade Center in Delaware, who later has introduced me to the director of this Export Tech program. So it's a 3-month program about exporting, which is starting this fall, in September of, 2018. So that's a 3-month program that's limited to a very few people, but they help you put together a solid strategy for exporting to, buyers and brokers in different countries and really assessing your those countries to make sure that's a good place for your product to go to and really consider any barriers and to exporting and customs and tariffs that I don't know about right now at all. So it's so easy for me to ship direct to consumer. I've shipped direct to consumer to 58 countries, but I have no idea what it means to scale and export, on a distribution level to another country. So that's why I try to find the next people that can really help me along on that journey, even if I don't need it right now, but maybe in 6 months I'm there, or maybe in a year I'm there.
Right. Are there any books or thought leaders that you're a big fan of that have helped you in your business?
So the one that comes to mind, so I really like Simon Sinek, and that's really just about leadership model. And so I do have, team members who work for me. And so while it's so important to build the business and the products and the infrastructure, obviously focusing really important on the people that I'm serving them who work for me is very important to me in building a company culture. Because without company culture, I think a business can crumble really quickly. So that's one thing I have, that I listen. I've read all of his books and listened to podcasts and interviews and things like that. Another kind of, I look at other business models that are a bit different to mine, but they really inspire me. So I might listen and read books that are relevant to that specific company. So, Dogfish Head is a local craft beer company here in Delaware, and I love the way that the business has been built and scaled in their company culture. So, I've read books by the founder of that company. And then also, of course, like The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I remember reading that a couple of years ago, and I had an epiphany, going, "Oh my gosh, I'm a small business owner, and I want to be an entrepreneur, and those are not the same things."
What's the difference?
Well, the small business really depends on that individual who started it, and so that's where the systems and infrastructure comes in going, I want my company to be able to run without me there, nurturing it on a daily basis.
I was going to jump in. I think this is another potential conflict with makers where when you start talking about becoming an entrepreneur and then you are trying to create a business that doesn't need you anymore, you start separating yourself from the baby that you created, right? What was that process like? Any suggestions that you have for someone that just cannot think of a business that they created and be able to separate themselves from it?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is really challenging because sometimes the girls the people who work for me, they will be doing a task and a chore. And sometimes I'm envious because I've got to take a phone call or I've got to pay taxes. I've got to do all these other fun things or make these appointments and, just have these meetings that are not so fun. And sometimes I might miss going, oh, I wish I could make that salad, or I wish I could make that tea, or I wish I could be shipping. But at the same time, I have to remember I'm creating opportunities for other people. And so while I'm not getting to that specific task of creating at the moment, I'm creating work that gives purpose to something just beyond me. I'm creating a company where they can come and they can work and they can enjoy their jobs, which is really important to me to create a fun workplace atmosphere. And so it can't just all be about me and finding my own fulfillment. It has to create fulfillment for other people. So it's so hard to let go of that, but knowing if I really want to grow and scale this, I have to look beyond myself and outside of myself.
What's something that you need to give up, like a problem that you have today, not a problem, a task or activity that you do today, you have to give up, but you're just holding on to for dear life right now?
Let's see. Well, so we are just opening the first herbal apothecary in Delaware. So it's our first retail store. And so right now I know that I will be the person that's kind of manning it to start, but I know I have to train associates to run here and man the apothecary because I can't be the only person because I have to, mind manufacturing and I have to mind shipping and then I'm going to have to mind a store and I'm only one person. So I love the idea of really serving customers and clients when they come into the apothecary and helping them find the products that they need and engaging them and getting to know them. I can't be that only person. So if I want to grow this apothecary to meet the community to its fullest capacity, I'm going to have to let that go. And it's not even open yet. We're opening like in a week or two. So it's very new. And so I have these ideas of what it's going to be like. It may be very different than what I'm saying right now. I can just, assume what it's going to be like. In reality, it'll be totally different. But I know that's something that I'm going to have to let go is that I can't be at the store all the time serving customers because there's so much bigger things that I'm have to consider if I'm growing and scaling. If I'm traveling to trade shows, which is something that we're kind of starting to explore. But, what does that look like to go wholesale, beyond just direct customer? So finding those people, that's what I have to consider all those things. And it's not easy to do that at all.
Now, where do you go to hire employees?
Word of mouth, mostly. So that's where I've been really blessed with the people that have worked with me. I haven't had any problems. So it's really been word of mouth. But I've also done interviewing and just kind of, and being very careful about who I interview. So currently we're hiring for, a sales associate position at the apothecary. And this is the first time I've done this in a retail setting. I've never ran a retail store before. So this will be a new adventure and to keep it on point with the brand, but that's also relevant to the community. And so letting people turn in their resumes, but knowing from who I've hired in the past of kind of, making those barriers where it used to be just so easy to apply. So making it a little bit more challenging to apply for positions. It is going to be, it's good, but it's, it's different where people just turn in an application and now they actually have to send in resumes and references and cover letters. And I'm going, oh my gosh, 4 years ago, I probably didn't apply for my own position. I didn't have a clue how to do that.
Are you mostly hiring part-time employees or are there full-time employees that you also have on the team?
Yeah, part-time. I don't have a need just yet. I think one is slowly turning into my first full-time employee. But it's always been part-time, like 1 day here, 2 days here. But now everybody has a schedule. Everybody has a schedule of where they're at, what department they're working in, what they're doing. So we've become much more systematized. Before it used to be fly by the seat of my pants, what fires are we putting out today? But now obviously we can forecast, what we need to do longer term, and think, weeks and months ahead into product production. And so that's kind of the process at the moment.
Got it. Do you think business owners typically hire employees too early or too late?
I think too late. I think definitely it could be too late because it's just, I know that I put it off for so long, and sometimes we don't realize that adding that employee into the business could really free that business center up to do other things that are more valuable. and really considering how valuable time it is, and so, we all have valuable time, but my time as the business owner and the creator, of the company, casting vision, is much more valuable than me shipping orders at this current time. So I eventually will have a full-time person, and I dream about what that person will be like. And for me, that's a general manager, and I think about for someone, so I've been thinking about that for about a year now, and just thinking, okay, when I'm ready, what does my revenue have to look like? To be able to pay for a salary or the hourly pay of a general manager who actually has experience, because I don't have time to train a general manager. I've never been a general manager. I've just created a company. So I definitely think about that long term, having a general manager, being a full-time person who can oversee all the departments when I'm not available and keep things running smoothly. If at some point I want to take a vacation.
Yeah, I've heard this concept or way of thinking where is if you want to become a $1 million person, you have to start thinking and treating your time as if it were that precious, that expensive. If it was, I'm not sure what it breaks down to, but let's say your time's worth $1,000 an hour. Would you pay someone $1,000 an hour to pack boxes, right? If that's not something that you would pay, then that's not good use of your time. So as you start wanting to become a larger and larger, you got to value your time much, much more and grow that over time. That's exactly what you're talking about. So let's jump back to the beginning. So $380,000 in 2017, just last year. What were you doing the very first year? Like, give us an idea of like where you started, like in terms of revenue.
I think in 2011, because I was not tracking or monitoring anything before 2011. 2011, I think I did somewhere around maybe $3,000. And that was probably online craft shows, everything. And to me, that felt amazing and tremendous, and I was so happy. And I still am. I've learned to be with every stage of growth to be content, because I feel like it could all go away tomorrow, so I'm super content with the stages of growth and development that's been in. So 2011, it was about $3,000. I want to say. And then in 2014, and I can't remember the specific things, but it grew up over time. I think it was like 2012. It might have been like maybe 5,000 I did in revenue for the whole year. Of course, that's not profit because I didn't even calculate expenses and profit at that time. I did not know.
You might be losing money. Who knows?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't even know my cost of goods. I didn't know my profit margins. I didn't know any of that. Now I know that to the penny. So I know all of that to the penny now. And 2014, I think it was probably, I want to say, maybe about 20, maybe 30,000 in 2014. And then, I remember starting thinking about, I started really using social media more for my business at that time and doing Facebook and Instagram. And Instagram, I really feel like is my international bridge. And that's where a lot of our international customers have come from. We direct to customers to 58 countries. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever think that was possible to have customers in 58 countries. And so as I started developing a lot of customers on Instagram, I thought, I see a lot of big companies who are super corporate, and they have a big marketing budget, and they have brand ambassadors and brand advocates, and they pay a lot of money. Well, why couldn't I use my current customer base who are already loyal fans and those who want to buy the products, but they can't afford it? Why can't I create a program to give them the opportunity to use the products to, create an incentive and to give them, some product in return for that? And so, I think it's about 6 months, 2014. I really took 6 months to tweak out what that would look like, how that would fill, how long should the program be for a single ambassador. So then in 2015, that's when I really got it figured out. And that's when I saw a huge jump from 2014 to 2015.
Right. You told us that the orders jumped by 8 times and revenue jumped by 6 times once you really got this ambassador program rolling.
Yeah. It was tremendous. So, I was, once I got it rolling, I just saw the order number just climb and steadily over 2015. I think 2015 I did I want to say it was about 200,000. I think maybe it was less than, I can't remember, but it was a tremendous amount.
An inflection point in the business.
Yeah. And then I was just like, wow, this thing I'm building with part-time employees and only me is full-time. this is phenomenal. What is the potential? I had no idea that was possible. Then I started to really learn how to dream and cast vision long term beyond just the day to day and the week to week and the next month. What do I want my business to be next year? And then the year after that. So now I try to cast vision for like 5 years ahead. So it's much different than it was in 2014, 2015.
Yeah, I've heard you say this a couple of times on casting vision. I've never heard of it described that way, but it's very descriptive in my head when I hear you say this. What were you doing? Maybe what kind of thinking were you doing when you first started casting vision? And nowadays, how do you try to make that as wide or as large as possible?
Yeah. So just dreaming about how do I want my business to feel? To me, what does it mean to my life? How does it impact my lifestyle? The people that work with me and work for me, the customers that I serve, and so, and thinking long-term, like, legacy, what impact does that have in my community as a whole and, to the marketplace, so for me, that's casting vision. So I'm thinking about, where we've created, a couple of programs where I created a midwifery scholarship program that I've done it 3 years in a row. And to me, doing that on a long-term strategy is where I have a scholarship program where I get to choose midwives and we just to choose different organizations. For me, that's casting vision about what impact I'm making in the marketplace to people and agencies and organizations, in kind of mission work in just a very different way through my business.
Got it. So when I usually hear vision in business, people usually say, oh, I want to build $1 million business, but you're talking about what kind of impact I can make with a business. And then that kind of just trickles down into building a business that can impact the community, impact your community in the way that you want it to.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, so revenue is great, and it's great to have a wonderful business that creates revenue, that's profitable, and now I'm able to pay myself a salary, which I didn't pay myself for years. I always paid all the people. I had assistants, and so they would help me. I always pay them, but I was able to eventually start paying myself a salary, which is amazing. But when I think about the impact that I'm making in my community, so we just opened an apothecary, and so it's our retail store, but it's so much more than what we have online. It's where it's the loose bulk herbs and it's the raw materials and it's the product packaging for other makers in the community. If they want to come in, what can this apothecary do for the community? So other than creating products, and having holding classes for them, are there different associations in my community that I can partner with as a business and give back to them and create kind of a giving campaign through this retail location, which would alternate on a regular basis. So, we serve a lot of mothers and babies, that's a big part of our client base. So naturally I'm going to look for something that is in harmony with that. So there's a place called Mom's House. And so that serves single mothers as they're going back to school. So that way they can provide childcare for them. It's a nonprofit organization. So those are different organizations like that I'm going to look to partner with so I can kind of serve my community as well through our retail location.
Got it. So I want to jump back to that ambassador program that really took your business to the next level. So how do you start if someone has, maybe a small customer base and they're like, hey, I want to be able to build an ambassador program as well. Where do you start?
Well, I think you just start with just a handful of customers who are that are really love your product and that really are a fan of you and your business. I think reaching out to them directly and going, hey, I really want to grow my business. Would you be willing to help me in exchange for some, product or some store credit? I think that's an easy way to do that. Or maybe there's a different perk that would work for that specific customer, depending on what the business is. So just having a very candid conversation and just saying, I'd like for you to help me. I think you're really great. That customer is just a fan who's going to be a fan no matter what you do and make. Those are the types of customers that I really look for ideally. I mean, the type of ambassadors. And it doesn't have to be like when people think of ambassador programs, I think they naturally think, I need somebody that has 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers or 1 million or whatever it is. I really feel like micro ambassadors and micro influencers who are brand loyal and loyal to your products. I feel like those are the best ones. At least from my experience, having done this now for 3 years and having worked with a variety of influencers, if you will, online, but usually just trying people who are regular users of my product, or just dying to try my product, but maybe they have limited funds, and so those are the people that I'm typically going to choose. But starting out with literally one or two, it doesn't have to be a large amount of people that you partner with for influencers or ambassadors. And then working out what does that structure and system look like as you scale it beyond one or two, maybe 3 or 4, and then 10, and always a finite amount. I saw when I started the ambassador program, originally it was for I thought a 6-month duration. Well, the life cycle of my customer may not be 6 months, knowing that if they're using my products, and primarily most of them are nursing or pumping, they may be for 6 months, but depending on when they become a customer of mine, they might have 3 months left, or they might have 6 months or a year left. I don't know, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm choosing new people, new customers, and giving people new opportunities, and so maybe I've had over 1,000 people apply to become an ambassador of the influencer program that I created. Over 1,000, and I've obviously not chosen them all because it's so many people.
I mean, if you could sustain it, is there a downside to having 1,000?
Yeah, well, it's hard to manage them all. Yeah, I mean, I've never had more than probably 15 active ambassadors or influencers at a time. Never more than 10 or 15, because I want to make sure if they have needs or questions that I can answer those for them, until I find an assistant that can be able to take over that at some point. While I enjoy doing it, I can't continue to do it if I'm going to grow and scale my business. So it's something I have to think about. How can I teach this to somebody else to do? As I've been building it and changing it and tweaking it a little bit here and there. So yeah, never more than 10 to 15 at a time, because then I couldn't manage them all in addition to all the stuff that I actually have to do. And I don't even do it every month. I do it as I have time. So sometimes I might be 2 or 3 months go, you know what? Right now, it's definitely helpful for my business and the traction and the traffic it brings to my website and the revenue. But at the same time, it just might be a very stressful time for me to do choose ambassadors. Like during the summertime, I have 3 boys home with me all the time. And so that's a really stressful, very intense time for me. So for me to choose ambassadors at that time consistently is very hard to give them attention for what they need for that 30-day cycle.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you don't need to look for ambassadors that have 10,000, 100,000 followers, but there has to be a threshold though, right? Like what if someone wants to enroll and they got 10 people and they're all their friends or family? Is there a limit that you at least try to respect?
Definitely. Well, I want to make sure, if I'm evaluating someone are they going to be a good ambassador? I have a really good memory. So are they engaging with my post and my social media on my different Facebook? Are they already a current existing customer? What's their engagement? How often are they on, whatever social media platform that I'm going to run my ambassador program on? So for me, I use Instagram. That's where a lot of my customers are hanging out at. I considered other ways to do ambassador programs and different social media platforms, but I felt like Instagram is just easiest for me, and so, I look at, okay, how often are they posting? How often are they online? What are their engagement rates? So what's their activity rate? If they're going to log on to Instagram, maybe once a week or maybe once every 10 days, they're not ideal for me. Someone who's really highly engaged and loves Instagram as much as I do.
Got it. What's the smallest following that you've allowed, I guess, into your ambassador program?
Probably less than 200. It's probably less than 200 followers. So not a lot, but as long as they, I kind of give them a strategy and a plan to kind of how to execute it, so as long as they can follow the strategy and plan, I'm fine with that. I felt like I've worked with other, influencers and ambassadors, on a much more, on a casual level, but also on kind of let's pay for you to be an influencer for this post. And I felt like I got more engagement and more activity from the micro influencers and the micro ambassadors who would do it anyways, not because they're looking to grow a following, or they're looking to get paid to post this.
Yeah, I think there's also some kind of ad blindness when you are working with an influencer that's just churning through products and they have a new one every week. People start, if you're following someone, they've only promoted one product ever, where for the first time you only seen them promote it once, then it's going to be more impactful than someone that's always churning out new products that they're promoting. So when you do have an employee that you're delegating this to, what would be the first thing you want to teach them?
I'd probably teach them on, how to evaluate potential candidates for the ambassador program. So how to look through it, and how to evaluate their social media profiles, look at have they been a customer before, or is this their first time? So we have a form that's on my website. Anybody can check it out, the questions that I ask. And it says, what type of questions I'm asking to see if they're a good person for it. Have they tried any of the products before? If they've not, it doesn't mean that because they have not tried the products before that they would not be a good ambassador. But that helps me give a little bit more context to who it is that's filling out the application. So then, I just evaluate their social media profiles. So I'd probably, if I'm handing off this task to somebody else, how to onboard them, what scripts and emails to send them to welcome them in, to confirm that they're still interested, because maybe they've filled out this application several weeks ago or several months ago, making sure they're still interested in being an ambassador and it works for them at this season in their life, and so on how to onboard this individual into the program to make sure I'm clearly laying out and defining kind of how it's going to work, in a step-by-step process, and, and touch base with them throughout that time that they're an ambassador over the next 30 days.
But what's the first thing that you ask them to do? Like, what's expected of an ambassador?
So an ambassador, just I ask them to post to their own profile a couple times a week. I think it's like 1 to 3 times a week, and authentically. So that's really important that they don't sound like a commercial, an annoying pitch. Just authentically share what this product is that you've used and how it's helped you. That's all you have to share, or maybe they've not tried the product yet. Maybe they can repost something from my profile. Everybody reposts on Instagram all the time, different things, but maybe they've not tried it yet, but they want to repost something and give their thoughts and their opinions. So that's one thing that I have to do. And then maybe just engage and have meaningful conversations with other potential customers that are like them, but to be encouraging, not to be pitchy. So nobody likes to be pitched to. So if they find someone, who is in their season of life, and maybe it's another parent who is also cloth diapering and they love the baby balm salve that we make that's cloth diaper safe. We know it's safe for babies. Maybe they find them and they can say, oh my gosh, I love your cloth diapers. Like, this is the salve that I use, or this is what I like. So trying to create a conversation. And so if I notice, because I pay attention when I have ambassadors, the conversations that they're creating, if I find that they're not having an authentic conversation, it feels too pitchy, I'll kind of gently and kindly go, hey, maybe let's try to rephrase some of the dialogue or the scripts that you're using, because I don't want to annoy anybody at all. So that's why it's not so easy to do every month, because I want to make sure it seems authentic. And it's like, I want them to feel like they're replicating me, essentially. It's what I would do. So I want them to feel like if I can give them the tools and the scripts and the way to act on Instagram, as an ambassador, that's what I'm trying to do within the program.
Mm-hmm. What was an improvement that you made to the ambassador program that made it more manageable?
Well, when I first started it, I think I had a 3-month term, and that was way too long, because it's hard to keep people's engagement for that long as an ambassador, to sustain that relationship with them for 3 months. So changing it to a 1 month time, I feel like that was really good and really helpful. So I felt like just changing to a 30-day cycle, and then I used to try to do it every month, and that was just too much. So, I don't have to do it every month. There's no rule that I have to do this every single month, that I always have to have active ambassadors. So if I go 3 months without having any, that's absolutely okay. I can create my own rules and my own guidelines, because it's my program and it's my company. So giving myself that flexibility and that grace is also very important, So I felt like those were really good. And so now I'm still trying to use some tools to really get a little bit more systematized on about, like, how do I measure the effectiveness of past ambassadors as well as potential ambassadors. So what social media tools are there that I can use to really tell if someone is going to be a good ambassador? So that's what I'm in the process now of trying to figure that out.
What other kind of tools do you use today on your store in terms of apps or off of your store in terms of social media tools you use that you depend on?
So some of the tools that I use, one I think is really neat, is an app called Loox. It's Loox, and so that is just a customer review that people leave. So I really enjoy that one, because I'd be able to put all those reviews through that app harnessed on one page. And so there's a living page where all the reviews live on my website. So if someone searches Euphoric Herbals reviews, they're going to land up with that page. So Loose is one that I use. Of course, I use Privy to collect emails. So that's a really good tool as well. Let's see, some other ones. And I also use, because the products that I use, they're consumable goods. So it's a tea or a salve or a supplement. So I use another tool, Bold subscription apps. So that's another one that has been really good to create recurring revenue. So those, I think, are probably some of the best apps that I would say that I think have had the most impact on my business.
Got it. What would you say is your favorite part of your website?
Well, I had it custom designed when I moved over to Shopify. So that was really nice. Before it was just templates and kind of meh, and that felt so great. I think now a lot of people, typically, they can find things pretty easily. And so I wanted to be able to make sure it was easily designed. So I can't say there's best thing, but I just like it. The brand offline and online from the product packaging feels the same. So that's why I'm trying to create that whole customer experience from when they first come to the website, from when they get the actual products in the mail, that it feels the same. And then so I'm trying to create that whole experience as well in the apothecary. So what does it feel like when they go to the website, to the store, to their products? They have the same experience.
Why is that important?
Well, I think for brand strength and brand identity, so when someone is when someone gets my product, maybe they're going to get the product from, maybe a friend gives it to them and they've never had any experience with my brand whatsoever. They've never been to that website. They've never heard of it. So when they go to the website, they have a certain feel to it, or so maybe if they come into the store, and then it feels the same, where it's not disjointed. So that's one reason why I know people are searching actively for our products on Amazon, but I just can't go there just because I'm like, I lose that customer experience. I lose that relationship that I get to have with them from emails, from website to product packaging, that whole process that I'm trying to create. And that's always ever evolving. I'm always refining it so that they know what to expect anytime that they go there. And so that's why moving into retail and doing wholesale is very challenging for me, because I'm trying to think of every little facet and I can't, because I'm only one person, but to the best of my ability. When someone goes into a store, when I start doing, moving my products into many markets, what is their experience with the brand if they've never purchased my tea before online? They don't even know anything about my company or farmers markets. We do a farmers market every week. I have another girl that runs a farmers market, and trying to create that cohesive brand feel from the products, how they're displayed on table, to the tablecloths we use, to the printed marketing material, to everything, so it looks on brand all the time.
And did you always, from the beginning, have a focus on that to make sure that you're on brand all the time, or is it something that you went back to revisit and then cleaned up after you kind of built out the business a bit more?
Yeah, I definitely did not think about that in the beginning.
Because it can kind of slow you down, right? If you're just so focused on making sure everything's consistent, it can really slow down on business. So yeah, I'm just curious when you decided to jump back into it.
Yeah. Well, and it's so easy, I think, to feel like you have to rush ahead and then slow down. So, in the beginning, I felt like I was just managing the day-to-day and putting out fires. I never thought much about my brand. I mean, I had a little bit of idea about branding and what that was like, because I was a photographer. And so that was a whole branding thing. When I was a photographer, I really fell in love with the idea of branding and marketing. And so that's been a tremendous asset to me as this business has grown. And that was just tipping my toe in the water. And now it's a lot larger than that, I understand. But it wasn't anything that I started in the beginning, and it's something I probably didn't really start to think about probably in 2013, when I really started thinking about that, and so even now, I'm kind of in that mindset of, branding, colors, fonts, packaging, everything, from offline to online, that it's all similar. If I'm using certain color palettes, I'm not going to send something in the package that's not within my color palette. It doesn't make sense. I want them to have the same experience from even, the tissue paper that I buy. It's the same brand colors from the product packaging and the fonts that I use and everything, and the marketing materials, but it's all the same. It's all in harmony.
Got it. So you mentioned that when you did move over to your own store, you guys had a custom design. Were there any specific conscious decisions that you made to make sure that the site was easy to navigate, easy to use?
Mhm. Yeah. Making sure, there was the design firm that I use is Lydia. And I had seen the work that they had done before, and I could not afford them years ago, and I absolutely just loved their work. And so making that conscious decision, it was really hard to make that investment. But I was like, you know what? I want a website that I feel like I'm going to absolutely love for years, for a couple of years at least. I don't want to hire a designer that's good, but I wanted to hire a great designer. So being very intentional about that, and I saved up for it. And so it was a tremendous investment, but it was a well worth investment. And so that they really got to know my brand and my customer base. And so as they really dug into my brand, they really helped me to kind of finesse the online presentation of the store. They didn't help me choose tools and apps and things like that and tell me what I should and shouldn't do, but just kind of the layout and the ease of it. But I had looked at their portfolio, so I knew I knew who I was hiring and the quality of work that I was going to get. And over time, I've added apps and tools, as my business has grown to see which ones would and wouldn't work. I think I've tried a couple like loyalty apps, and that haven't really worked just yet. But at the same time, it's probably because I've not given enough attention. I've been so busy doing other things that I've not really figured out how to utilize that tool or that app to the best of its ability.
Got it. So thank you so much, Cindy. So Cindy Collins, euphoricherbals.com is the website. Where do you have your vision casted for next year? Where do you want to be?
Well, so having the manufacturing well underway, we do most stuff in-house, and then of course we scale out our product production of our capsules. But being more stores, the wholesale. So that's something that I'm really, as I've been this year building systems and infrastructure. So having our products in stores, so that way people don't have to wait for shipping. They can just go to a store in their community and go buy some of our products. So that's a big part of it. And then growing our international as well.
Awesome. And if anyone out there has any questions, make sure to just drop them in the comments on the show notes on the Shopify blog. And Cindy, would you be able to hop over there once this goes live to answer some questions that the audience might have?
I'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much again, Cindy. So euphoricherbals.com. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you, Felix.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify. To get your exclusive 30-day extended trial, visit shopify.com/masters.